what I need. Non-partisan. We are less safe with this effort. And I just met, when did I do that? Yesterday, the day before? When did I meet with you and Ann?
It was on Wednesday.
Okay, I'm glad you didn't know either. We met with all the international students. And you know, I'm going to tell you that here's the honest truth. Did I answer one question after 3 hours? I don't think I did. Because I don't have an answer. Every question, can I go home? Will my visa? And student visas are a whole different class. And actually, you don't have to renew them. Can I go home? Am I safe? Can my brother come? Can my mother come? My dad is sick. He's been waiting for 6 years from Egypt to come see me. What will happen? And every single response, I'm not sure, I don't know, call me. And the only thing I can come up with is, I'll go to the airport with you. And I'll wait for, come to Dulles. I'll wait for you at the airport. And I'll get Beto O'Rourke to cross the border with you when you're in Mexico. And because I don't know. I don't know. So we're going to go to court, and then I'll do as much as I can personally. Sometimes members are solving those problems one at a time, and sometimes they're not. And the entire Hispanic caucus on the immigration issues, you know, that was actually my question, all right? They wouldn't have a meeting with us, and I was told I couldn't be in the meeting, and we got into the meeting. Now they're not going to meet with us again for another week and a half, yet the executive orders and the memos are continuing back and forth. But here's the bottom line. Are you intending, and I said 8 million, there's a 3 million of 11 million individuals who don't have proper documentation, all right? 3 million are in sort of a legal status limbo, if you will. So really, when we talk about folks who are undocumented, the number that many folks use is about 8 million in the United States. So I said, are you proposing that 8 million individuals are now subject to your list of priorities, meaning there aren't any? Right? That's what we're going to do for deportation. And the answer was, by Acting Director Homans, no. It's all 11 million. Right? And what they believe, this is my opinion, it's not fact. I don't have it in a memo. But my opinion is, even though they've picked up dreamers, that for traffic tickets, and I mean, so my opinion is that they won't have to deport the dreamers, because if they take their whole families away, they'll leave. I think that this is an underlying, and again, I'm going to repeat myself. I don't have that as a fact. I don't have that as a memo. I don't have that as guidance. I don't have that from a member of the administration. But my sense, given what I am seeing, is I think that's how they defend that we're being compassionate. We get the dreamers as long as they don't have any criminal histories. But I think that they just know that you can't. How do you stay if you're 19? Who would want to stay in college if both your parents were gone? Right? So I'm going to court. That's what's happening.
Congresswoman, thank you for being with us today, and thank you for being our woman in Washington. I'm Dr. David Manzanares. I'm a general dentist and the Secretary-Treasurer of the New Mexico Dental Association.
I know exactly who you are. Thank you very much for the work that you do.
Thank you. One of the ADA's top priorities right now is repeal of the McCarran-Ferguson Act. Now, this is a little bit of an arcane piece of legislation, but about 70 years ago, health insurance companies were given an exemption to several of the antitrust laws in our country. I'd like to know what your position is on that and see if you'd be willing to join Representative Paul Gosar on House Resolution 372 to help get rid of this terrible law and ensure that hopefully the prices of insurances can come down, benefits can increase to our patients, and those of us who provide care can quit wasting so much of our administrative time on useless paperwork, and we can start providing the care to our patients.
We are creating a drowning environment. It's like education. The healthcare industry, we created So many problems. I don't know about Representative Gosar's legislation. This is the first I've heard of it, so thank you. I will immediately on Monday get a briefing on that legislation. I will call your office directly, give you my opinion. If there's something in that bill that I'm concerned about, I'd like to talk to you about it. And if that's not the right bill, let's talk about other pieces of legislation that get at the issue that you're concerned about.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Hi, I'm Ken Whiten. I miss my mom. Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower. That's the Republican Party I joined when I was in college. These guys are not Republicans, they're rhinos. Now, so many of the things you're talking about that are happening in Congress are not getting out to the general public, and I think part of the problem is this guy sucks all the air out of the room. So, my suggestion is call all 3 local TV stations and tell them enough of the tweets. Let's go and find out what's happening in Congress.
I love that idea. You know, I think actually Congress helped create this problem, and it was a purposeful strategy. So when they decided, and it was a Republican strategy, to allow C-SPAN in, but not tell you that there's not really a debate. There's no debate. There's nobody on the floor, and I do it too. I want you to hear that I'm doing X, or I'm working on Y, or I'm mad at Mylan, for jacking up the price of an EpiPen. But there's nobody there. It's me and 3 other members of Congress, and we're speaking to the camera. So it feels like we're actually talking about that issue, that you're debating it. So it's a manipulation of what's really occurring. So there's not organic debate. Look, sometimes I don't even know if Bill's going to be on the floor. Sometimes you know before I do. You might have seen it on a tweet. I just get called to go downstairs and vote on a piece of legislation I've never seen. Right? It's really tough. And Democrats did it to Republicans when Democrats were in charge. Republicans keep doing it to us. This is no way to do good policy for the country. And the use this, getting information out and creating not information, affirmations. And we've sort of retrained Americans into following, just hearing what you want to hear over and over and over and over again. And that's what's happened. So you see this huge transformation of the media. I think it's despicable that we're in a democracy where you want, and the Constitution is very clear about holding our democracy means that we have a First Amendment right to free speech, and that also includes that we're making sure that we've got freedom of the press, and that's identified. I might need to see you after this town hall. How we shift that so that it's information, not affirmations, is a much harder design. And I actually think that the media continues to perpetuate sucking the air out of the room. And that's exactly right. So when we did, was it a week or maybe 10 days of the terrible press conference? And whether, again, some people might not have thought it was a terrible press conference. Some people did. But if that's all you're reporting and you're not talking about what's happening with the FBI or what's going on in Syria or what happened, quite frankly, in Afghanistan and Iraq, or what's happening right this second in Israel, then you're not getting fact-based, right, worldwide coverage or anything that's going on in the United States. So I don't know what we do about that, but I'm gravely concerned about where we've headed, and I don't think that you should be controlling the media, but I need the media to help us do fact-based reporting. And we need members of Congress to do fact-based constituent relationships. And that's why I'm going to do all 3 of those on healthcare. I want people to make up your own mind based on the facts that we provide, not just my opinion. So help me with that. If you've got an idea, I am all in.
Fact-based caucus.
Fact-based caucus. That's a great caucus. I'll create it. Done.
Call your TV stations, get them on the stick, and write CBS and ABC.
Thank you for being here. You mentioned Israel. I'm very concerned about the situation there, the extremists on both sides. I believe that there's a need for a Palestinian state to be formed. I'd like to think that you support that. Do you?
I do. I think that if we continue as we are to move away from an American policy about a two-state solution, that we're going to create more hostility, more inequity around the Middle East and the world, and that's the last thing that we should be doing, and I'm very concerned about it. And many of the pieces of legislation in Congress have been really hard votes, right? They're meant to be very narrow, so it's like one step forward and two steps back, and it's been very difficult, and I'm very concerned and not happy, actually, that the policy of the United States has been two-state solution, but also that we don't interfere in the government decisions by the Israeli government. But the problem now is that the Israeli government is moving away from a two-state solution. So, and we've got a federal administration that's saying, fine. So how then do we recorrect? I think we're going to have to say something to the Israeli government, because that's a shift in their policy. That creates more, in my opinion, instability in the Middle East, which is the last place we need more instability in the world. So thank you for caring about that.
We're going to go on this side, but before we do that, I need to ask another question from our overflow rooms. Can Congress, or will Congress, reverse all the executive orders signed by Trump that deregulates protections for quality of air and water?
I'll give you a short answer. Largely, Democrats are going to, and we are, for every executive order that's repealing or moving away from any of these standards, including one of the most recent, which is not requiring coal mining companies to dispose of their coal waste in a way that's productive. So yes, Democrats will introduce legislation. Doesn't pass. So again, this is why being here is so important. Again, we're going to talk to every member of Congress, talk to and states are going to have to say, you know, the federal government rule is X. New Mexico's requirements are Y. The hard part about that, and I've got a legislator, I keep pointing over here. We've got Senator Daniel Soto. I'm sure we've got some more legislators, but I can't see you. So I keep picking on them. We can sometimes lose federal funds to help us in those endeavors, right, when we're against whatever that policy is, but I don't think they're sending us federal money in that regard anyway. So this is where states band together and say clean air and clean water are fundamental to our quality of life, and we have to do everything we can to stand against that. And again, I think individuals are going to have to, I think the judiciary is going to be very busy in the United States of America. We're very glad that we have independent judicial branch. That's a tough answer. There's legislation being introduced against every one of those rollbacks, but they're not going to get a hearing unless there's a real change, which is why in 18, these elections are so
Hi, my name is Kathy Brown, and I'm here today as a concerned citizen trying to learn how to be more engaged, and also as the founder of Indivisible ABQ and our just spoke, to say, as a Democrat, I hope that we can meet in the middle, as we all just want to be decent human beings. My question today pertains to Trump's taxes. And although he's made several claims to release them, he still has not done so. And every president since Jimmy Carter has released the taxes, including Republican President Richard Nixon, while being audited. I'm fearful that he's taking us all for a ride. Clearly, he's taking us for a ride, but I'm concerned that his conflicts of interest and other issues that we don't know about put all of us at risk. And I feel he doesn't have our best interests in mind when making his decisions. I understand that Congress has the ability to act unilaterally to ask for these taxes to be released. And there is a representative, Bill Pascrell, who is circulating a letter.
Just turned 80 and he's amazing.
And my question to you, Representative, is are you going to sign on to that letter?
Yes, I am.
Okay. That is all I needed to hear. Except that I would also like to say, I think it's clear from this group that we have your back.
Stuff that you don't always agree with, and you need to tell me. And I can tell you that if you come to my office, a lot of people do. And more often than not, they're right. And we make mistakes, or we don't have all the facts, but more importantly, I have your back. I don't know that I said that. I love this job. And I know I'm leaving this job, and it's bittersweet. Even though I'm telling you, Congress is a mess, there are many Republicans who I firmly believe are decent, smart human beings, and I fight with them all day long. and they're going to tell you the same thing about me, that they think that I hope they think I'm smart. Decent, they know I care about this job, and they know there's not a single member in Congress who does not know that I love this place, and that I worry about it all day long. They're clear, because I start every debate with, in my home state. Right? And so they're clear. And I gotta have hope that Congress can heal itself. And I gotta have hope that Congress is gonna do the right work in not only this administration, but every single one. Whether it's a Democratic president, a Green Party president, an independent president, a Republican president, that we understand our job is to do two things, is to make that president as successful as he or she can be, and also hold them accountable. And that's a democracy. And I don't know how we get there from here in Congress in this minute. But I have your back. I love my job. I'm going back on Monday. I'll be right back on Thursday night. And we're going to keep doing that. And I'm going to keep trying to get folks. And one last thing, just to tell you that there really is hope, even though I don't want to minimize just how difficult it is right now. That would be unfair. And a lot of people, including a lot of elected officials, who are fearful. Right? We're worried, and I'm worried about the ban, and I'm worried about the wall, and I'm up at night. You know, I get a text, I tell you, every 10 minutes. No, I mean that. From people who are asking me what to do because they're worried about being deported. And I get New Mexicans who are concerned that, you know, maybe the current climate we can't sustain for folks without documentation, that we can't have an open border, and that we've got gangs and violence. I get it, I do. There are 2 sides, 3, 4, 10 sides to this issue. And that keeps me up at night about what I do. I have a dreamer who can't sleep, who's texting me. What can you do? And I can't do anything except don't lose my phone number. Wherever you are, wherever you go, you need me, I'll get in the car and I'll come to you. Right? And that's not enough. It's not enough. So I just want to say, I got your back. I love my job. I have hope. And one of the most conservative members of Congress, who created the Freedom Caucus, who doesn't really believe in any entitlements, protected New Mexico SNAP beneficiaries, Mark Meadows. All right? Because I convinced him that he should do the right thing. fight hard, but I don't want you to lose hope, because I think about Mark Meadows every day, a guy who, if he could vote to eliminate SNAP benefits, would do it tomorrow. And yet, he stood by me and forced a Democratic administration to protect New Mexico SNAP beneficiaries. So I just want to tell you that there's hope there to do the right work.
My name is Clint Toledo. I am the co-founder of Together New Mexico, a grassroots organization aimed at promoting activism here in our state. My husband and I are both in the education field. My husband is finished with his PhD at the University of Michigan, and I'm a special education teacher here at APS. I have some students that are very scared, especially after this last week when the Trump administration reversed protections for transgender youth in our public schools. Make no mistake, this is not about bathrooms. This is about the transgender community having the freedom to exist in public and safety. So my question to you, since you have been a longtime advocate for diversity in this state, what can we do as a public to protect our most vulnerable youth, and what will you do in Congress to protect our most vulnerable youth?
So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to fight against all of those rollbacks. We're going to work really hard. I actually think we might have more success because there's more controversy about the Secretary DeVos among Republicans. So I think there's actually places for us to re-engineer what their priorities are and aren't. The bigger problem is going to be Sessions, right? Who I think actually, I hate it when you guys candy coat stuff. So Sessions is going to use every one of these departments, right? In ways that I think he's not allowed to, because his job is actually to protect us and defend against discrimination. So I think that we are going to end up actually doing investigations about the lack of his objectivity. There's plenty of controversy. So I think there's some places that we can move in Congress for both those nominees, and not nominees, but both those secretaries. I apologize. I was hopeful. But your activism, here's a place where it's making a difference, because I don't have clear answers because I'm in a murky, muddy environment in Congress. And I know I've said that, I need to say it again. If I had a clear answer, I will give it to you. And we're promoting strategy, we're introducing legislation, we've got resolutions on the floor. I'm going to do another immigration bill. Getting it heard when we're not the majority is really hard. But here's what it is, it's working. Look at all the school districts. The biggest school districts in the state have already said they're not reversing their transgender protections. On many of the social issues that you care about, even in a Democratic majority, they didn't move in Congress. I don't know what it is about Congress. I don't know. We need like a whole work ethics training. So, if you think about the things that we care about in terms of diversity, they've moved at the state level. I actually think the states are going to fix healthcare. So keep that activism is the best medicine, the best protection, and it makes a difference then to other members of Congress who are seeing state by state, but we got to take it out of blue states. And I'll be a little political. It's not enough for New Mexico to be a place where we feel like, by and large, and remember, my cousin Manuel Lujan held this seat, the very seat I have, for the longest period ever, and I will tell you that many Democrats come to me and say, I like you, Micheille, keep doing good work, but I loved Manuel. Trying to do the work that he did. And so, very bipartisan state, right? Unique family. Most of us have a connection. We're either really related, or we're neighbors, or we went to school together, or we're related by marriage. I mean, that's the beauty about being 1.8 million. Is that you nearly can know everyone. That is a very that's not how it works in New York, right? And that's a fact, it's a very important value that we have. If we can start to move that, look at the things that we have in common with other states who are struggling, right? Arkansas, Mississippi, West Virginia, the Carolinas, frankly, the rural communities in Georgia. If we can start to relate, then those schools are going to think about these protections, and they're going to have a wonderful advocate like you, somebody who's in the education system, who's going to have their own local advocates group. And look what's happening in these town halls all across the country. That's never happened. I mean, that's not fair. The Tea Party, and to their credit, I mean, honestly, they said, look, we hate the Affordable Care Act. It wasn't enough for us to fix some of the things in the Affordable Care Act. And now we're saying, you can't erode our basic protections, and you're showing up. You know, if we can show up in these local communities, Congress will change. I put it will change. So do what you're doing. Do what you're doing. I will vote no. And maybe I'll get a chance to vote yes on something before 18. I've actually voted yes on a lot of stuff. I should tease. I want people to leave here having hope. We've actually passed some legislation, and I gotta hope that I gotta hope that I'm going to get an infrastructure bill that I can support. I gotta get this administration to do protected, positive, public partnerships that are not privatizing highways. We gotta get that. And New Mexico needs that infrastructure. We need hospitals, we need roads, we do need our own bridges, we need wastewater. Unless it's oil and gas that cleans it up. Right? Then you do. We've got some issues here. We want that infrastructure, so thank you for standing up and raising that. And I did what I'm not supposed to do now, I'm just ranting. But we want to vote yes on that bill. So this effort, let's get a bill that we can vote for. Okay, next question. I'm going to get right.
Hi. My name is Salvador Di Contangel. I don't represent everybody, just myself. And my partner, of course. First of all, thank you very much. It's so refreshing to see a fierce and strong woman. I think like many of the people here in this room, there are so many things now lately that they are still in my sleep, you know. As an immigrant person that went through the problems of getting residency here, to become a citizen of the country.
How long did that take you?
It took me about 8 years to do that, to the right chance. And I was sponsored by a company. So I understand what it takes and how it screw up the whole immigration process is. So it keeps me at night. All my family is in Mexico. I'm the only crazy one traveling around and doing stuff outside the country. So it really keeps me at night thinking that my mother is not going to come and visit me, or she's going to be stopped at the border, or even if I go out, that I'm going to be stopped and questioned what I'm doing or checking my phone and stuff. As a gay man, I'm afraid that my marriage is not going to be enough for this government, for this administration. So I want to be treated equal like everybody else. I don't want to be special considerations. I just want to be fair and equal. That's all what I want. And the last one that really is keeping me awake at night right now is getting a job. Unfortunately here, in this state, there are no jobs. I do international trade. I have a master's degree. I can speak 5 languages. And unfortunately, I cannot find anything here. My husband and I now are in the process to consider moving out of the state because there is nothing here for me that I can find. I've been trying for a year to find a job. So my question to you is, what can you do in order to make this state better for jobs, to bring industries here. So as people like me, we don't have to fled our state and look for other opportunities in other places. And we can stay in this beautiful place. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I would love to get your resume. I can't promise. In fact, members of Congress are not allowed to call other people and say, you're going to hire that guy. I want to be very clear. But we can be really good navigators. And on that point, actually, we won't know till April, but I have to tell you I'm feeling pretty good. That we have changed the contract requirements for the national labs. They spent $1 million less, Sandia did, in New Mexico last year. $1 million. They benefit from a strong economy. We benefit from having a strong economy. I want every dollar that we are giving them right here, and I want them to hire folks. Now, we probably would have a debate about this, and I'm not going to spend too much time on and I'll tell you why quickly, about whether or not we should be investing in the labs. But I want the labs to do all the kinds of research for all the things that they are doing in addition to being part of the nuclear enterprise, right? They're doing great photovoltaics, laser, green energy. They're doing incredible research, and we want it. And we want it. I think there's going to be defense investments. Again, and we may not all agree about that, but we are going to take advantage of good. I mean, it was defense investments that taught us about how to treat and cure cancer. Right? That's where nuclear medicine came from. So let's do the benefit of that. Given, if I believe that we will won that there's now a performance measure in the contract that requires them to do more in this economy, that we're going to have a little bump in the next year or two. And then I don't understand why we don't have an economic vision in the state that affects every local body of government, the state government, that we aren't hustling, that we aren't leveraging every investment, that we're not using the permanent fund in a way that gets us to a better economic vision. I don't understand. I'm happy to talk to you at any time, and you help me create the best economic vision, and I will vote for anything in Congress that I think creates an economic opportunity in New Mexico, and I have. Thank you. Don't leave.
Hello, Congresswoman. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your efforts to stem the tide of what's going on. I appreciate it for sure. I'm sure we all do. My name is Maureen Polikoff, and I'm a social worker and a therapist in private practice in Albuquerque. I think I want to kind of make a statement with a question at the end. My statement is that in my 30 years of practice, I've never seen such an emotional and psychological response to a presidential election. I see many clients who have suffered or suffering greatly with increased anxiety, depression, grief, anger. I have clients with post-traumatic stress disorder whose symptoms have been increased tremendously and are suffering. So my question is, people are expressing a great deal of hopelessness, I believe. And I think that you've talked about this already a little, but I think my question is a simple one, but also a very complicated one. And that is there hope? What kinds of indicators are there that there's hope that things are going to change and that people can sleep at night and not have to go to their primary care doctor for an increase in their SSRIs? So that's basically my question.
So I really do think there's hope. I don't want to minimize. I don't think that you're going to be happy. I know I'm not. That all next week I'm probably going to lose every effort in terms of votes, right, for the things that I know that would make the biggest difference for the country and for the Mexicans. But I'll see, 124 members stand strong. I'll see some moderate Republicans be very nervous. I see people protesting peacefully. I'm very unhappy about the states that are trying to criminalize that in some way. You know, positive, is how you change things. That's the sign of a democracy, right? This is democracy in action. I give the women's march. I give the guns to them. And look, you know, I don't know what will happen in the legislature. I keep looking. Daniel Ivy Soto, Senator Ivy Soto is never going to come to another forum I do. But you know, I participated directly in the New Mexico State legislature for almost 30 years. This is the furthest, and again, I'm not dictating to you where you fall on this continuum. But as we look at gun issues in a pretty strong gun state, right? And again, I'm just going to pick on you. This group, you're all ranchers. You need those guns. You do. I'm telling you. And I want you, yeah, okay. This group over here don't want them at all. And this group here wants responsible gun ownership. I'm just sort of minimizing and simplifying, overly simplifying the gun debate in this country. I just did that. In 30 years, although it comes up somewhere, this is the closest we've been to moving legislation that would do criminal background checks and really focus in an environment where I can't get legislation passed in Congress to prevent folks who are on the terrorist watch list from buying guns.
Don't use that list.
Don't use that list, okay. So, it doesn't make any sense. Like, look at the hope in the room. So, I think it's a tough environment, right? Yeah. Look at the women's march. Look at everybody here. Take a good look around you. For men and women that you respect and that took time out of their days, there's not a single one of us that could have been doing something else important and meaningful, but you're here. And they're in the overflow rooms, and people are watching and paying attention on Facebook, and we're doing it all around the country.
And we're not going away.
And we're not going away.
Hi, I'm Patrick Murphy. I voted for you in the zip code 87120. My roots run deep here in the state of New Mexico, our state. My grandfather's grandfather signed the first treaty between the Navajos and the U.S. government. His son served 9 years at Fort Wingate with the U.S. Army. His son served 4 years in World War II with the United States Marine Corps. My mother served in the Korean conflict as a communication specialist with the Women's Army Corps, President Eisenhower's WAC. And I'm here to say that I've been working diligently for the last 2 years to bring about 15,000 young Navajo families electricity, safe, reliable electricity using renewable energy. And I'm happy to report to you that President Barack Obama had invited me and honored me at the first ever White House Demo Day. I was just one of a select few representing the western states to bring to market an innovative energy source. So you had mentioned that air and water are very important to all of us, to our health and well-being for generations to come. I just wanted to tell you that this week has been a little bit stressful for me. Another statement of the day, right? But over at Oyate Spirit Camp up at Standing Rock Sioux Indian Reservation, the federalized military police, the unarmed, peaceful citizens of this great United States over the pipeline that has been streamlined by the Trump administration. Here in New Mexico, in my homelands, in the Chaco Canyon area, the Bureau of Land Management has a lot of land out there. And I shudder to think about the children that are growing up right now out there without refrigeration, without the internet and access to a lot of the modern technology that we take for granted, that they will now have to deal with fracking, polluted water, and of course polluted air. So I just wanted to see if you reaffirm your commitment to that today, and thank you for the time here. It's an honor and a blessing.
The Interior Department and others, because actually 5 Bureau Indian Affairs officers, at least 5, have been rotated to Standing Rock to participate in minimizing those protesters. So it does 2 things, right? Seems like 5's not so many, but it makes our tribal communities here less safe. And the rotating officers that then are agents that don't have a relationship with their community. We know that the benefit of community policing is knowing your community, so that you can be proactive, not reactive. They're coming back now, and I'm sad about why they're coming back, right? Because they removed all the protesters. Your delegation, the whole delegation, was upset at the Obama administration for allowing that to get as contentious and for using the National Guard and using private police in that way. And then we got the Obama administration to pull back, and then we didn't do so well in this administration. Thank you for standing up. Thank you for your advocacy. I was on an In Focus maybe show where we talked about my commitment to Chaco Canyon. I'm already on the record being very concerned about the methane hotspot. And working on clean air and clean energy issues with a variety of organizations. And we really have to figure out what we are doing and what we can do. Some of this is going to be making sure that our land commissioner is very clear about what our priorities are. And the legislature, I think, is pretty clear. And then it's also going to be making sure that the federal BLM does not engage in unilateral trading and release of those lands, which they can do. And that is, for me, that's going to be a tricky. We've been pretty successful with BLM, and so I'm just hoping they're going to continue to pay attention to us, because I'm not going anywhere, and I know where they all live. So I feel more confident about the abilities to do the right work in New Mexico in that regard than I do about saying getting as they renewed and trying to make it constitutionally sound, the ban, the travel ban. So I feel more confident that we'll have more success here earlier. The immigration issues and travel issues are going to take longer because we're going to be going to court all the time. So thank you for raising it. Thank you for being an advocate. And you have me at hello. I'm sorry. See, I'm terrible. I'm sorry.
Congresswoman, thank you for being here today. My question is about Islamic extremism. The Republicans and conservatives have done a really good job, and I think have been successful in painting the narrative that this is coming from religious hatred that is, they claim, endemic to Islam. Democrats have been right there, basically saying, well, it's not all Muslims, playing into that same narrative. So that narrative leads to one end only, which is the subjugation or annihilation of Muslims, beginning with the Muslim ban, ending with internment camps, who knows where it goes. You yourself have, the roots of those, of Muslim extremism truly is our policy, right? Our nation building, capitalism, empire building, militaristic foreign policy. Democrats have not had the courage to point to that as the root of the backlash that we're seeing. And I think that's the only way out of the mess that we're in. narrative that we have. You yourself have taken money from Honeywell and Northrop Grumman. What will you do specifically? What concrete actions will you take to change the narrative, to accept responsibility for what we've done and the results of it, and to say our foreign policy is the most important thing that we can change to affect Muslim extremism?
I need to think about how I could work with experts and folks like you. I mean, I try really hard to avail myself of both a balanced, right? So I'll do the less balanced of that. So when there's a significant national security issue, I read the classified documents, I go to the classified briefings, I work hard to pay attention to what's going on in those, and it's against exactly what you're pointing to, right? That it goes right back to a national security, be very fearful framework, and that we've got to be aggressive in our responses. And also thinking about, particularly when I relate it to what we're advocating as a Congressional Hispanic Caucus and the Minority Caucuses, that if you invest, and we did that, right? We did not very much. Gilbert, you might have to tell me, did we do 400 or 800,000 in the sort of when we were dealing with unaccompanied minors? We were looking at changing the economic opportunities and the safety issues in those countries so that we got a relationship that protects people where they are and then has a better working relationship between us and these other countries. Those are easy examples. And I can't remember that. Well, I may have to check that for the audience. It's either 400 or 800,000, not enough for kind of an economic corridor. But we really don't have a very good opportunity to have a better conversation. And maybe what I need to do is think about, is there either a professional organization or a caucus that's really working at not having a fear-based response, and one that's more about independent individual respect. And I don't know about that. The best I've heard is really talking about how young, particularly some of the Muslim and Middle Eastern countries are as an example, and the benefits. I mean, for folks here, you know, when we're really looking at recruiting for the benefit of not just research and thoughtfulness and religious expression, you know, we recruit young people from these countries. In the Trump administration, I think that's stopping. But we invested in having those relationships and hearing directly from individuals and individuals with different religious backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences. Is there something that I could do? Because I don't have an answer about changing the narrative. You're right. The narrative in D.C., all of it, and I'm there, so I become an unwilling maybe or unwitting participant. It is all fear-based. I admit that. That's all day long. I'm exposed to that, and I think it may be a bit purposeful. And it's not to say I'm going to say this so that you know I'll tell you the truth, because I will. I think there are some real threats, and I see enough about those real threats, and I think that we ought to be prepared to deal with them. But I have no doubt that there's an overreach here, and a strategy that's not productive. What can I do differently?
Well, my question is about changing the narrative, which means speaking out about how we got into this situation. And that is not happening anywhere. It's not about saying, looking at an individual basis. It's about saying the United States has set ourselves up for this through these actions. How are we going to rethink how we interact with the world in order to not perpetuate this? And how can you, as somebody representing us, bring that issue up? Because it's being silenced. Democrats are afraid maybe of seeming weak.
We need to get away from war in the Middle East is what we need to do.
Democrats are maybe afraid of seeming weak, or that we're somehow justifying this violence, and so they're afraid to speak up. That's what I think.
I think that's shifting, particularly in this environment, because we've had the worst possible thing happen. That in a fear-based environment now, look how far this administration is going. So I don't certainly want to suggest that too bad we had to wait for this, which is the extreme opposite, to give us all a wake-up call. But I think the narrative is going to change. And if you'll make sure, maybe, do you like coffee? Because I love it. And I would be willing to spend some time with you about just exactly that strategy. Would you do that with me?
I would think.
Done.
Thank you, Michelle, for all your hard work. I'm Maggie Washburn. I'm a semi-retired biology professor, and I run a big NIH program. We've helped hundreds and hundreds of New Mexico students achieve their career dreams. I have two things. One is I spend a lot of time trying to talk with people who voted for Trump. And so the first thing I would say when you talk to people is say, I don't care how you voted. I just care what you stand for. And that opens up all sorts of possibilities. And then for a choice, you're talking about the right things, but I always say, I don't know a pro-choice person who wants a woman to get pregnant so she has an abortion. And that really opens up. So I have two budget issues, two congressional budget issues that I need to bring up. One of them is NIH is still on, the National Institute of Health, which has benefited everybody here and a lot of your children, is on a continuing resolution for 5 months. And it's going to hurt us in the long run if that doesn't get fixed. But the other thing that's killing us is what the heck is happening with the Albuquerque rapid transit money. Let's get this darn thing done and over. It's horrible. It's killing us. Anyway, Michelle, I want to help you. I think about a lot of these issues, and I would love to help you.
Thank you.
My name is David Douglas. I'm a proud New Mexican, a returned Peace Corps volunteer, and a direct beneficiary of the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act.
Right on.
And I
Begin to the mic.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I believe in thinking globally and acting locally. And there are some issues that, on a global sense, need to be addressed that might help us get out of the mess we're in now. One is the repeal of Citizens United. And to bring about meaningful campaign finance reform. The other thing that would help would be nonpartisan redistricting around the country. And the third thing would be to strengthen voting rights around the country and repeal voter suppression laws in the books. My question is, what is the momentum in Congress and other places to do these things?
There's very little momentum. I'm on every bill. I've got a dark money. There's nonprofits, actually, and I don't want to get in the weeds, but if you're a C4, not a C3, there's a way for you to be able to spend almost half your money on political activity. So I could be the Cancer Society. They don't do this, by the way. I could be a C4, the Cancer Society, and spend 50%, 51% of my money on cancer education, information about where you can get good services and treatment, what to look for, here's free preventative screening, and then I could spend 49% saying, as a cancer advocate, the Affordable Care Act is the worst piece of legislation, and the best thing for us would be is to repeal it, to get rid of Medicare and Medicaid, because that's the only way that you can negotiate your own health care deal. And you don't know who's paying for that. You think the Cancer Society might be really saying that? So that's a credible organization. I can't even get a hearing on that bill. And so I don't think there's great appetite for that, and certainly there's no great appetite in Congress right now to do anything about voter suppression, which is clearly occurring. But your state is doing good work again. So you're right on. Global, think globally, work locally. So I've just been invited. I don't know that I can go yet, but we're going to have a hearing. We've got one of the sponsors, I am sure, right here, to put New Mexico in a position, right, to have a resolution that goes to the voters that says, you know what, we want to be one of those states that asks the country, state by state, to overturn Citizens United and to have the majority. Members of Congress are not allowed to do anything unless your staff tell you to. So here's what I do all the time. So I'm going to that hearing, Mariana.
I'm right here.
There you are. You're welcome. Tell them. And I do the reverse. It drives them crazy because it's against all their training. And I want to talk about why it's really important to have this conversation, this debate, because you do have to take money, and you can't get elected. You know how much we spend billions of dollars on elections, and I've had to do it on every election. I know there's other elected and potential elected officials who are candidates. We're all raising money, and listen, I'd rather put that money into daycare. Don't believe me, but I do it. Because I can't get elected. It's a terrible, terrible system. And so, if we get states to do that, and I think you're going to be in it, I think we're now living in a state that's going to do everything it can not to have not only voter suppression, but I hope that we pass laws